So you are here for I Just Want to Move, keeping children with autism spectrum disorder safe. So I'm Erin. I'm a PT at Nemours Children's Hospital in Orlando.
I'm Amber. I'm also a PT at the same place.
Yeah. We have no disclosures. Nobody pays us for anything. So we're going to start with some of the basics. So autism is a complex and lifelong developmental disability, typically appears during that early childhood, and can impact a person's social skills, communication, relationships, and self-regulation. Autism is defined by a certain set of behaviors and is a spectrum condition. The estimated prevalence from the CDC is 1 in 44 children are diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder, 4 times more prevalent in boys than girls. No found racial, ethnic, or socioeconomic prejudice, and is frequently associated with other disorders. So many children will present with a combination of challenges, and these are some of the major ones presented by families, including delayed language skills, delayed cognitive and learning skills, hyperactivity, inattention, elopement and wandering, strange eating habits, abnormal sleeping patterns, GI issues, anxiety. It just goes on. Of course, these challenges add to the stress and strain on a caregiver as they're trying to provide care for a child with autism. In the next several slides, what I'm going to do is hit on the primary 3 problems that seem to be presented by parents in our clinic, and then address how an ATP or therapist can assist families with equipment that's available out there. So we're going to start with elopement and wandering. Elopement is defined as an act or instance of leaving a safe area or safe premises done by a person with a mental disorder or cognitive impairment. 1 in 4 children with autism are said to elope or wander away from supervision each year. Elopement is found to be a significant factor contributing to mortality. In a study that's referenced later, between 2011 and 2016, out of 808 reported autism missing person cases, due to wandering or elopement, 139 of them resulted in death, with 98 of those being accidental drownings and 25 caused by traffic injury. So elopement doesn't always occur in the community. That's where we think of it the most, but can also be elopement from the home, from a car seat, and just from safety in general. So another one is that poor safety awareness. Many children with autism spectrum disorder have social interaction communication deficits. So the child may not understand verbal commands of stop, look out, or don't go, and put themselves in unsafe situations. Many have restricted interests and repetitive behaviors that can place them at increased risk of injury or harm. For example, children with autism are often drawn to water, so they may incline to enter a body of water, though they don't know how to swim, or even just turn on water and play, causing damage in the home. I do have a family that mom had to redo their entire bathroom because the child got all of the water running and flooded the bathroom. So, also with that, in Orlando alone, just between Thanksgiving and Christmas, there were 3 news stories in our immediate Central Florida area of 3 children with autism found drowned. So it's safety awareness. Additional sensory seeking behaviors can lead to dangerous activities. We hear a lot about climbing, jumping, doing things that without any really regard for their surroundings or what danger they could be putting themselves in. And then the last one we're going to address is sleep disturbance. So families will often report that the most prevalent sleep problems they're seeing are bedtime resistance. They don't want to go to bed, trouble falling asleep. So you can get them in bed, but then they don't go to sleep. Night awakening, so frequently waking up throughout the night, and then just poor sleep duration. Oh yeah, my kid goes to sleep great, but then they're up at 2 a.m. and you can't get them back to bed. So if a child with autism has sleep disturbances, along with elopement troubles and unsafe behaviors or self-harm behaviors, families are left having to be awake and alert at all times. How does a caregiver stay awake all day to work, provide care for that home, that child, potentially other children, and then have to be up all night managing a kid who is bouncing around or potentially unsafe or could cause harm to themselves or elope through the evening? You just can't function. I don't know about you. I can't, but you can't function that way. So poor sleep quality of the child also impacts that caregiver. Some families do report trying medications, essential oils, melatonin, a variety of things, along with home remedies to try and help with sleep with really varying responses. Some of my family say that meds have worked great. Others are like, it's really done nothing for me. So what do? We know these problems are out there. How can we help? What do we do next? I know there's a lot of words here, sorry. First thing we're going to do is do a really thorough, I'm driving me nuts because I lost my pointer for me.
To zoom it out.
Is this touchscreen by any chance? The mouse is not working. Sorry. I'll make it work either way. I don't want to advance the slide. Like I want to move the notes section. I'll survive without it. All right. So like I said, what are we going to do? We're going to do a really, really thorough evaluation. Okay. We need to ask questions and lots of them. So families don't know what they don't know. So we need to find out what's going on and how we can help them. Families oftentimes when they come to clinic are distracted. They're tired. The child may be bouncing and running around in the office. They may have brother or sister there too. And mom's trying to wrangle all of that while also answer your questions, makes it really, really challenging. So we really, really need to get a good picture of what the problem is. So we need to ask again, and ask again a different way. There are lots of equipment out there. So we need to understand the family's living situation. We need to understand what their primary goals are, what they want to do, what they want to accomplish from this, so that we can make recommendations that are appropriate to what's going to work for their life. We also want to have open discussions with families. So I want to make sure they understand what this equipment is going to do, but I also want them to understand the limitations. So I need to understand the equipment enough to be able to say, here's what this can do to help you. However, because a lot of equipment is not necessarily designed specifically for children with autism, there may be limitations, and sometimes that limitation is in durability. So having the understanding and being open with families that, while this will do its job, it may need repairs over time. You may have to do replacements on things, and that's just part of it, and it's okay. The other thing is, don't be afraid to think outside the box. Sometimes we're pairing commercial things with medical equipment. Sometimes we're just getting really creative or learning from our families about how you can be creative for other kids. I have a family who in the car challenged with the child staying put, but then also throwing things. Mom installed a cargo net, like hooked it from the ceilings of the van around. So the child has his own space. So if he's moving, he's still in there. We're not messing with mom. That's not something that I'd would have come up with. It's not a medical piece of equipment, but there are things and ways out there to help that don't always have to be what we've got laying here. So don't be afraid to think outside the box, and then just empower the families with knowledge. We want them to understand that we are here to help them. We are trying to make not only their child's life safer, but their quality of life as caregivers and children better. It's hard to accept equipment sometimes. Parents come in and they know they need something. I need this. And then you show them what it is, and they step back. They get that hesitant look like, I just don't know. I don't know if I'm ready for that in my life, or I don't want that in my home. But again, helping to get them to understand the bigger impact of how this can really impact all of their lives, their life, the child's life, family's life in general. It helps kind of empower them to go, okay, maybe we can take this step and do this. Or if not, at least making sure they're aware of what's there. So when they go home, things continue to happen, or they have further challenges, they reach back out. Because I'll do that. Maybe they're not ready for a bed right now. Okay, but here's what's available. If you have further problems, if you need something, call me. We can bring you back. We can discuss this again. We can pick things out. So just help empower them as a whole. So you've done your evaluation. You have all of this information. We've got a great understanding of what the family's needs and challenges are. What are we going to do? We got to pick stuff out. So it's going to help guide our recommendations. And what we have up top here is the 3 most frequent pieces of equipment that we end up getting asked for, or really is identified as what we're going to recommend. And that are adaptive strollers, typically with some sort of securement or restraint. Not always. Some kids just need a means of movement. A safety bed to stop the child from wandering and moving about within the home when unsupervised, and an adaptive car seat with escape-proof products, typically to keep them in their seat and not disturbing the driver or anyone else in the car. These 3 items are certainly not all inclusive. There are plenty of other things, this was lifted some below, that people will ask about. So bath equipment, because little Johnny or Susie are moving all about in the tub and there's risk of injury, falls, head injury. So things like that, activity chairs, so that we can stay put for therapy tasks, feeding, school activities, mats and wall coverings for safety, helmets, mitts for self-injury, and then joint immobilizers and braces also typically for self-injury behaviors. So we're going to go through the primary 3 in solid depth, and then we'll kind of just quick touch base on some of the other stuff. So we're going to start with your safety beds. And the purpose of a safety bed is to provide a way to safely secure a child in place within their room and can address all 3 of the primary concerns that are here. So the elopement and wandering, sleep disturbance. Like, what was my third one? Our other problem. Yeah. It's Friday at 4. The concept here, though, is that the child is secured within the bed space, prevents them the opportunity to get out of the bed, wander the home unsupervised. So this allows caregivers that peace of mind that I've put my child to bed. I can go to bed and know that they are going to be right where I left them in the morning. They may not be happy. They may not be asleep, but they will be safe and they will be where I left them. You're not going to find them out the front door, down the street at the lake. They are in bed. Gives parents that peace of mind so that they can function. It also can be used for periods during the day. Single mom, got to take care of the kids. We still have to cook dinner. I got to take a shower eventually. You said it exactly. Got to take a shower eventually. Those 10 minutes, I can put my kid in bed. I can step into the other room and know again that he's going to be safe. So we want to provide safety beds to give them that opportunity. So going through the major beds out there, we have the Haven. So it is a full netted enclosure bed. It comes as a complete package. So you've got the frame, got the mesh, got the mattress, multiple sizes. It does sit low to the ground. So some of my families like that, especially with younger kids who can safely get in and out when they're allowed to be free roaming. So that way they can clean and easy move in and out of the bed without risk or concern. It is available to have head or foot elevation, which is not typically needed in our children with autism. But sometimes if we've got multiple, things going on and maybe we have a G-tube feed and we need to elevate head of bed for that, you do have options there along with access ports in the head and or foot to get tubing in. And then they have their clear view top because people like to watch their kids. I know I did. So with the clear view top, you can put a camera up top and you have a great view into the bed still. So I may be in my room, but I can still see what they're doing, make sure that everything's okay. The new thing that they are offering now, if you saw them in the exhibit hall, is the sensory curtains to cover from the outside and really cut down on light visual from the outside. The Pediatrics is another one. It is again a full netted enclosure bed, comes with all parts and pieces that you need. It does sit higher off the bed. So for some of those kids who are more dependent care, it puts it at a little more functional height for a caregiver, depending on how tall you are or short you are. It does have rails. Those rails are on the outside of the curtain. So whether you use them or not, you still have the full zipper available to you to keep them secured within. It is patient lift compatible if you order specific parts. So some of our bigger kids that may need to be lifted, again, with other comorbidities, we've got kids like with DMD and also autism, things like that. You can use your Hoyer lifts, which is great. And then they do have what's called their quilted liner. So for your tunnelers, your kids who like to crawl under their mattress or pull and get under anything they can, where it will go over the mattress and actually zips into the base of the frame so that they don't have access to that. So you can not get out of it. You no longer use a fitted sheet. You just put your regular sheets on top of it and go from there. Okay. Courtney is another of the same general functionality. It is a full netted bed, mattress, netting, and frame. It is open underneath. So some families love that. Some families don't. I've had people who go, great, I can put drawers and slides and things underneath to store. I have others who are concerned about their child crawling under and hanging out underneath the bed with the dust bunnies. So again, you make your choices based off of what you need, but this one sits up. The other fun and interesting thing about the Courtney is that the panels are all individual panels. So if I need to replace one because maybe we have a smearing problem and that one panel is just getting really nasty, I don't have to replace the entire thing. We can replace one panel. I would say also, since a lot of these kids are getting ABA, if our behaviors are improving over time and now maybe mom wants to allow them some more open and free time, you can remove those panels completely. And then you have like a little day bed or even just a 4-post frame. So it can be used cross functionalities. Then you get a little different and you move to the safety sleeper. So the safety sleeper is more of your tent style bed. It can attach to an existing frame, or you can sleep with it on the floor. They come with 2 mattresses. It comes with an air mattress and a foam mattress. So typically at home, you're probably using the foam inside of the base. But if you're going to travel, your air mattress would work for that. And that's one of the big things that they tout, is that we are easy to take apart and put together, comes in its own little suitcase, so that you can travel with it. So if you have a family that travels frequently or moves a lot, things like that, that's where this has come into play pretty well. Now, I don't know about any of you, but I haven't been able to get these covered. They're really expensive, but they're really great beds. But I have seen them. I have 1 or 2 kids who have them. They had them when they came to me. They didn't get it from me. But the Hannah bed is from Kaiser Benton. That is a full wooden surface. They have the rails all the way around as well as top. They will do plexiglass on the inside as well. So if you're concerned about access to the posts, or you've had a problem with, kids grabbing or breaking, they will cover those as well. It is the tallest safety rails available out there. So as our kids grow or they get taller, it is the biggest you're going to get in a full enclosure. The doors do open up completely on that front. So it opens up really wide for complete access, just like you see on the others from the zipped netting. Your cubby bed. So similar to the ones previously, it's 4 posts. Bed inside, they have 2 different bed options as well as far as mattress. It is a full size, so it is a bigger bed than the others. While most of the others can come in different sizes, the cubby only comes in a full. And it's kind of big piece that has brought families to me asking for this bed is the technology hub. So they have that little piece that you see up there in the corner that has a light that works with like circadian rhythm. It's got speakers and a mic and a camera, so that you can see straight in directly at your child. You can try and work with the sensory things to help maybe calm and encourage sleep, things like that. So that's really the big piece that has set them apart from other things. But we'll talk about funding with that in a little bit. Your Dream series from Beds by George has a top that you can add to their bed. So you would get the tall bed, and then they have a topper that connects onto the top. It is mesh, so it is breathable. And then that creates your full enclosure. So that can come in twin and full. Twin is typically where insurance goes. But the head and foot can elevate as well as mattress height. So that is a nice feature there where it, unlike a lot of the others, has a fully adjustable mattress height. And then you can pad the interiors if there's concern about those wooden walls. My kid jumps and bounces around. What are we going to do if he hits it? It hits his head. We're a headbanger. So they will pad all of those walls for you as well. Very similar from Sleep Safe is the Sleep Safe with the topper, which was cool to see today. They now have a mesh top, not a full wooden box. I even got in, I climbed in, I laid down in it, and I was like, oh, this isn't so bad. You have really great view. So there's a little plug there. But functions very similar to the Dream. So it is your tall wooden bed, and then they put the topper that extends the height, and then the mesh screen up top to prevent any climbing or elopement over the top edge. It can have a fully adjustable bed frame as well, head and foot, or up and down with the base. They will also pad the interior. Ready?
So you totally lost the thing, right?
I'm sorry.
Oop. I should be able to read it from there. That's okay. All right. So I'm going to talk about the adaptive strollers. And really in general, a lot of these products are things you guys are very familiar with. It's just a matter of why would we use it with kids in the autistic population. So really what most families are looking for is something that's lightweight and easy to transport. A lot of it is to prevent elopement in the community. Again, those kids that are going to run away, go wherever they want, do whatever they want. But also to, even if they aren't necessarily a runner, they may be, I'm going to stop and look at this, or I'm going to try to, just slow the progress of trying to get something done for a caregiver. So really just helping them to move more efficiently within the community. And then for some kids who, when they're out in the community, it just gets overstimulating for them. And that could turn into aggressive behaviors or the elopement or things like that. The strollers can help them to have a safe place to be so that they can be out in the community with their caregivers and not be escalated into some of their behaviors. So again, products you already know, but very commonly used are the Conveyed Cruiser and the Easy Rider. And just to point out some of the differences is kind of the level of tilt. Some parents will say that they do want to be able to have them be a little further back because they may fall asleep when they're out and then their head falls, things like that, kind of like with typical younger children when they fall asleep in their strollers. So there are differences in tilts. The Cruiser does have a 5-point positioning restraint harness that's crash tested if they're under 65 pounds. So if some of these strollers are going to be used on the school bus or things like that for transport, that can be important. And then one of the biggest things they always ask for is they want it to be lightweight. So as we go through the products, that's one of the things to look at is how lightweight they are. So these ones are about the same between the Easy Rider and the Cruiser. But again, the Easy Rider just has that 10-degree tilt. And the folding length is a little bit smaller than the Cruiser. So it's just knowing these little nuances for what you're gonna pick for a family. But both do have the transit option. They have accessories that can be helpful for the autistic population, meaning the canopy to kind of keep them covered, extended headrest cover, the rain cover, especially during COVID, but now even still that's affecting us, but that they can use that in place of the mask because a lot of the kids wouldn't keep the mask on. You can get full torso support and H harnesses, again, just to keep them in a little bit more without it necessarily being escape proof. Sometimes just having that on will keep them in. And then you can get ankle and wrist restraints and add a chest clip guard, which we'll talk about in a little bit. The Ligero Reach is another one that works well, especially when it comes to elopement, but you do have to consider size. So it's a little bit smaller than the Conveyed Cruisers and the weight limits that they'll go up to. You can have, it's fixed, but you can have choice of the amount of tilt that you want on it, plus the recline. And then you have the different sizes and you do have the growth adjustability. So, but it only goes up to 150 pounds. So depending on the size of your child, that can affect things. Again, product weight is about like the Cruiser, and it's also crash tested. So with this one, and again, we'll go into more detail when we talk about escape proof products, but you can add the Merit Manufacturing chest clip and the crotch buckle guards to this one. So it works very well as far as keeping kids in. And then just wanted to throw out there all the other lightweight stroller options. And remember, they don't always have to be that they have to be escape proof. Sometimes just the child is very comfortable in their stroller and they aren't going to try to get out. And so just going with something very basic and lightweight, but then knowing some of the differences and the pros and cons. So there's the R82 Cricket. That one is also approved for transportation, and there's a lot of pelvic and chest straps available, again, if they feel like they want that securement. The McLaren, that's got a 25 fixed tilt, so a little bit more tilt. It is a very short seat depth. It's only 10 inches, and your weight limit is the 110 pounds. So when you're getting into these bigger kids, it's probably not going to work for them. But it's very, very lightweight. It's 16 pounds, easy for families to manage. And then the Metro, Again, you can get a transit option in the frame. It's got even more of a tilt, the 30-degree tilt. So if those kids really like to be back, that helps a little bit more. You can get the 3-point positioning belt and some foot positioners. And then we also put in the special tomato because sometimes people are interested in that. But again, that's on the smaller end. That's really for your littler clients with the 90-pound weight limit. And it's only 12 by 14. But you can get the rain cover on there. And then the other thing with that is they have the little soft sitter inserts. So you can adjust your seat size a little bit through there. When we're talking about the strollers in general on those add-on components, so the Merit Manufacturing, the chest clip and buckle guard, crotch guard. And again, we'll go into that. I have some pictures of that to kind of show you how those work if you're not familiar. You can get ankle huggers. Sometimes you can do a strap or even custom modify a bar to the foot plates if they're really kind of kicking them out of the way or moving them or trying to put their feet down and getting them caught in the casters as you're trying to push. So that's kind of one of those kind of think out of the box a little bit so that you can try to secure the foot plates. And then you can do wrist and ankle restraints if you really need to keep them from reaching out, you know, knocking everything off of the grocery aisles as you're going through, things like that. You can use those restraints by Posey and by E-Tech. If the stroller options just don't work, if the kids are too big, the 5-point harnesses aren't fitting them anymore, or sometimes their behaviors are just too aggressive, or you just need more sturdiness than you might get out of a stroller, that's when you might have to consider a wheelchair. And this kind of goes back to talking with the families, you know, what are they ready to accept or not accept? But sometimes just a standard upright wheelchair would be just fine for them and is still transportable and foldable and all that. But they do tend to be heavier and bulkier than a stroller. But you could also put just the body point pelvic belt with the buckle guard on it if it's still a matter of elopement, things like that. So you can get very straightforward and basic as well. Just kind of depends on what the needs are that you're trying to accomplish. If you do go to a wheelchair and you need more than just a buckle guard, the Easy On vest is an option in wheelchairs where you can secure the child in the wheelchair. It wraps around the back of the chair. So it gives them a little bit more trunk support to keep them from leaning and trying to get out. And it just secures them a little bit better. And as we'll talk about further, the Easy On vests are familiar to a lot of these patients because they can be used on the bus and things like that. So that is an option if that's something that you need for just a standard upright wheelchair. It zips in the back. They actually have push buttons in the front too, but if they're able to push the buttons, they do have a zipper in the back so they can't reach and get out of it. And you have a high weight limit up to 168 pounds. So they last you a long time. So we're going to talk about some of the car options now. And again, a lot of this is more about elopement, usually not about need for positioning, but sometimes giving them positioning will just help them to be more calm as well. So we're going to go through some options about that. And again, mostly if they're going to unbuckle a seatbelt, get up, move around, cause risk to the driver or to other people in the car or damage to the car. Mostly what you're talking about are car seats that are compatible with some of the escape proof products. And then also those car vests that we're going to go into in detail. The vests can be a little bit intimidating as far as securing and things like that, but they do work well. So Merit Manufacturing has the Roosevelt and the Churchill, and they have their approved escape proof products, the chest clip and the buckle guards. And you can see the different weight limits. The Churchill will take us up to 175 pounds. So that's really for your larger child. The one thing you have to watch with the Roosevelt is it tends to be narrow. So you have to make sure that the child's comfortable in there, where the Churchill is just open and you don't have to worry about that. With the Churchill, this picture actually shows the vest. So again, if they aren't going to undo the Velcro or open up the vest or get out that way, and you're not worried about it, you just kind of want to secure them a little bit more than what just the lap and shoulder belt would be, where they would push it behind them or something like that. That's where just the vest would come in. But in addition to that, they have a 5-point harness where you can put the guards on there to keep them from escaping. This is a picture of the Churchill with the 5-point harness, and you can see you still use the seat belt. So in any of these that we talk forward about, even the Easy On Vest, if you do still need to use the seat belt, that's when you might consider just those seatbelt guards that you can get off Amazon. Some of them are the pill bottles, some of them are just the covers, because you may still have to do that to stop them from undoing the seatbelt. But both of these, the chest clip guard goes around the neck, and you have to make sure that it's adjusted appropriately, because if it's too low, it's not going to do its purpose. The whole purpose is that they can't pull it across them and get their arms through. So there are instructions, but you need to make sure that you get it at the right spot so that they can't do that. And then there's a little, you can see the little white in there that you turn to lock it so that they can't unbuckle it. And then the buckle, the crotch buckle down below, you can reach under with your finger to do that, or there's actually a little thing that comes with it that pokes through the hole in the center to undo it. For the crotch guard and the buckle clip compatibility, because we're going to talk about this in the next slide, but the crotch guard, it's not available, or it doesn't work with all the ones in the top row. It doesn't fit on there. It only works on the buckles that look like the bottom row, B and C. And then the, yes, we're going to talk about that next. Like, obviously it works on the Roosevelt, but and the chest clip guard needs to go on a seat that has a splitter plate in the back where you can actually undo the harness straps so that you can feed that onto there. And that leads to commercial seats. So you get these kids, they come in, it's like they may be 3 or 4 years old. They're absolutely still fitting in commercial car seats. This is where the decision-making comes in. The Merit Manufacturing chest clip and buckle guard isn't supported by the car seat manufacturers because that's not what they're crash testing with, you know, as we all know. So sometimes if there's no other options and they're great in their car seat, everything's working, they just need that, it kind of becomes the risk reward. As a child passenger safety technician, it's hard to, you know, we just have to have that discussion. Ultimately, it's the family's decision, but they are option and it's what's out there that we can use. So like I said, risk reward, the car seats are insurance, you know, we're trying to keep them safe. They will definitely still be safe in their car seat. And then the other one is the Spirit car seat inspired by Drive. This one goes up to 130 pounds, but as low as 25 pounds. And with this one, they do have a chest clip retainer and a crotch buckle guard. It's the pill bottle type securement. Now we're going to talk about the Easy On vests. I don't know how many of you have used them or are familiar with them, but they're small enough to fit into a backpack. They are crash tested. So you have a wide range of rates between 31 and 168 pounds. Sometimes, depending how you mount them, which we'll go through, you do have to actually get it installed, like drilled into the car. But there's all different sizes. There's crotch straps to keep them from sliding down because the vest, you know, they can sit there, but as soon as they slide down, so there's the crotch straps. And then you base the sizing based on their chest measurements. So these are what they look like for the family vehicles. And just keep in mind, there's two different, there's the ones that zip in the back, like I mentioned earlier, and then there's the push buttons in the front. So again, still depends on your client. The push buttons aren't always super easy, so they may not have the dexterity to do that. And sometimes that might be easier for the family. So you just kind of have to decide because these pictures look nice, but getting the child into the vest sometimes can be interesting. Sometimes doing it in the house, you know, or you'll get some type of routine for them so that they know what's happening and things like that. So we won't make it all look rosy that it's always easy to get them into them, but they do have the zipper in the back so that they can't get out. And then the other thing we put is the with or without loops, which we'll talk about later. You need the loops because with some of the mounts into the vehicle, you still have to use the seatbelt. So this is the tether mount. So you're just going to use your car tether that you already have. But you also have to use the lap and shoulder belt. So again, if you need the guard to keep them from undoing it, you may need that. You can use the zipper or the push button, and you have to have the loops to run the seatbelt through. This is kind of a picture. It was small. I don't know how you can see how well you can see it, but it just shows that the tether mount comes up over the shoulders, hooks in the back, and then you run the seatbelt through the bottom loops in the vest. There is also a floor mount. So if you don't want to deal with the seatbelt, there is a floor mount, and this is the one that has to be drilled into the floor of the car. But you no longer need to use the seatbelt. And honestly, what this one does is just, it kind of secures the hips and everything back because it goes through the bite of the seat. But as you can see, well, yeah, that's about it. Okay. This one is the school bus one. So again, a lot of children will have this. This particular one's for the school bus only, but it has the rear zipper closure. There's actually a zipper lock that I'll show later. If they do find a way to get back there, there's actually a zipper lock that prevents them from totally unzipping it. And again, it has to be able to go through the bite of the seat, which is common in most buses. And then sometimes the website can be a little confusing because now they also have this product out called the Max PV. So this is for family vehicles. It's kind of similar to what you're doing with the tether mount, but it does even more as far as going up behind the seat, like through the bite of the seat. So you can only use it with sedans or you can't use it with sedans or pickup trucks. To me, the biggest thing is that it really, like if they were to undo the seatbelt and do that, they are totally secured in the back. Like they can't get their hips out. They can't do anything else. So I think it's just kind of a next level of securement, but very similar to the one of just using the tether mount. Some of the accessories you can get with the Easy On are the wrist straps, the upper arm straps, ankle straps. There's a neck pad. If you don't want to use the seatbelt, you can get lower latch add-ons. However, you do have to, there's still that controversy about what weight limit can those lower latch anchors accommodate. So you do have to check the latch manual that goes with the vehicle to say what weight limit you can use those anchors up to. And then we talked about the zipper lock in case they're really, really trying to be Houdinis. And I know it's hard. I had a child, this is actually when I first learned about these many years ago, was he had gotten out and he kept breaking the window with his head. We had to finally secure him in the third row so that he couldn't even come close to anybody else. And we had to use the wrists, the ankles, everything, and put a helmet on him. So it happens, you know, but at least you know that they can be safe and secure. What else? Erin alluded to this earlier. We're just going to go into it just a little bit more, but as far as bath equipment, there's the basic like otter and wave style mesh chairs. It's really about straps and securement. So even though they can move, we kind of want to stop them from moving a little bit when they're in the bath or the shower, things like that, or any type of bath support. So just put some straps for securement there. The activity chairs, which she had mentioned during therapy or for feeding, ADL activities, again, just to give them a safer and secure place where they're not going to be trying to get away all the time. And then the wall mats and covering. I know Erin had mentioned she had a family that's really what you know, they're going to be in their room. You want to keep them safe. And they just padded all the walls with the wall mats. And then the helmets, these are available online as well. But you can try to keep them safe if they're banging their head against things, the mitts, and then the joint immobilizers. Again, things to just kind of protect them from self-injurious behaviors or injuries to others.
All right. So of course, the fun part, funding. How do we get things paid for, or do we get things paid for? Of course, with funding, it's very specific to state insurance provider. So I'm going to basically go through what we see in Florida, and then I would love to hear what some of your other experiences are with getting this equipment. So I'm going to start with our Medicaids and Medicaid HMOs. So for safety beds, it's become hit or miss lately. They were for a good long time. I was not having too much trouble with them, getting them paid and covered, but you really had to be good with your documentation. So they wanted to know that you had tried all, and I mean all, lesser options. I'm talking, they asked me about rails, Why can't we just put alarms on all the doors and windows? Why can't mom and dad put locks on everything? Well, do we have a camera? They can just watch them, which is great. I watch them run out the house and then I have to go try and chase like it. Right. So you have to go through all of that and explain why either you've tried it and it hasn't worked, or if you can be really good and just explain why it will not work based on other things that you have tried or done. With our adaptive strollers, they also want documentation as to why they can't ambulate functional distances. So as we talked about, some of our kids can. Most of our kids can walk functional distances, but is it really functional when they're stopping and throwing themselves to the ground because they don't want to walk anymore? Or if I'm running off because I saw something over there that I wanted and mom's still moving that way. So bringing those safety aspects into it to help them understand why that's necessary. Car seats with my Medicaid HMOs, I get covered, or your MMA plans, however you want to put it, the offshoots of our Medicaid. Getting them covered with no problem, but again, need to justify why I can't use a commercial seat. So what is a commercial seat not doing to keep them safe? And generally the escape stuff is what gets it, especially when you throw these crazy stories that families will come to you with. I had, Johnny was out the window and on top of the roof of the car by the time mom had stopped the car on the side of the highway to get out and come get him back in his seat. I have heard it all. I'm sure some of you have heard some crazy stories too, but you put that in there, you express the safety, not only of the child, but it's the child, it's the other passengers in the car, and truly every other person on the road around you. Because if your driver is distracted, you're now a hazard to anything else on the road around you. So we're trying to keep the general public safe. In addition to mom and dad and the child. Unfortunately, traditional Medicaid in Florida has not decided to cover car seats. When I started 8 years ago in pediatrics, they wouldn't even review it. They would straight up just say, this is a non-covered item, which you can't do. So after some fighting, we now at least get them to review it, but it has been a consistent denial across the board with a pretty generic statement of there are other families that are able to transport children with similar diagnoses in safe manners, things like that. I don't get it, but they don't want to pay for them. The other equipment, again, kind of varies, but usually gets covered as long as you've got your documentation supporting that need to secure them to allow increased independence. So, if I can keep Johnny in his seat, he'll eat his dinner. We can actually feed him to maintain weight. I have occasionally gotten some pushback and wanting actual documented proof from a GI or from a PCP regarding weight loss or being underweight or malnourished. But those are definitely few and far between. Largely with the Medicaids, I have not had any issues getting those extra things covered. But then we have our private payers. They're a different ballgame. Safety beds have varied. Again, documentation is the same. You need to explain why we can't just sleep in a regular bed or a bed with some rails. Why can't you just put some pads around them and they'll be fine. So document really well, had pretty good success. Adaptive strollers also have been a varying item. Unfortunately, in Florida, some of our payers like to try and go by Medicare guidelines for use within the home, which is super appropriate for an 8-year-old, right? Because he can stay home. He doesn't have to go anywhere. Doesn't have to go to school. Doesn't have to go to the grocery store when mom leaves home. Like kids have to go places. So it's really frustrating because they say, oh, well, he doesn't need it to complete his ADLs. He doesn't need it to get from the kitchen to the bathroom to his bedroom. Therefore, you don't need it. So sometimes we have to try and find alternative funding sources and other ways to go about things. But again, some will pay with a little bit of fight. A lot of them are denying. Adaptive car seats typically have been denied under my private payers. Every once in a while, I feel like we sneak one through. I think somebody was either in a good mood or wasn't reading well, and I'm going to run with it and go and be happy. But usually those are denied items as well. The other equipment, activity chairs, bath chairs. Again, Blue Cross seems to be the bane of my existence with things. Bath equipment under them is typically just an uncovered item. Some of our other payers will pay for them. Same with activity chairs. Some will. A lot of times though, I get back it's just a non-covered. They're not saying it's not medically necessary. We're not saying you don't need it. We're just saying we don't pay for it, which is again, frustrating. So I'm like, you're telling me you're like, you agree, like we need this, but we're still not gonna pay for it. So yes, that's where we stand. Can you tell my frustration? I'm not a fan of insurance, but it's unfortunately a huge piece of what we do as AT providers. You know, everything we do, we have to send through them. And for some reason, they get to make the decisions about what is and isn't needed. So that's where we stand insurance wise. So again, from watching the faces and the heads, it sounds like a lot of similarities across the board.